Hey guys, today we are going to read our next story in Journeys called the Trial of Cardigan Jones. And just like we did last week, we're first going to go ahead and go over the vocabulary words. Now we will have a vocabulary test on Friday, so it is very important that you review these words throughout the week, and you can always look on page 46 of your Journeys book to do that. So I would actually like for you to get your Journeys book, if you don't have it yet, and then turn to page 46. And I'm actually going to move my laptop so that way the light doesn't keep going from dark to bright. Maybe it can stay the same. Okay. So hopefully we're all on page 46. And the first word is trial. In a trial, people in a courtroom review what happened to figure out the truth. So a trial is when, just like it says here, when people go to a courtroom and a judge is there, okay, the jury is there, and they try to figure out what happened, and they try to figure out who's guilty and who's innocent. Our next word is jury. Members of a jury hear the facts of the case and make a decision together. So people in a jury, now if you look at that picture on page 46 here, people in a jury, they decide if people are guilty or if they're innocent, okay? They kind of help out the judge in a way. And the jury is made up of just regular citizens, just like me and just like you when you get older. You can ask your parents if they've ever been on jury duty before. And that means that the courthouse, which is where they have the trials at, they can ask people to come in and be a part of a jury. So it's actually a very big responsibility when you're a citizen of our country, okay, which means when you live here. So the jury is a very, very important part of a trial, okay? It's just they get to hear all of the different sides and they kind of make a decision together on who's guilty and who's innocent. So they work together with the judge. Number 3, convinced. The lawyer made the jury members believe her. They were convinced. Convinced means that you believe something. So if I convince you that tacos is the best food to eat for dinner, then that means I made you believe the same thing as me, okay? I convinced you, I made you believe what I believe, like my opinion. And it's really important in a trial for people to try to convince someone that either somebody is guilty or innocent, because, ultimately that person can have a consequence if they're guilty. So it's very important that if you're innocent, then you convince the jury and the judge that you are innocent or guilty, which is our next word. Jurors tell the judge whether they think the accused person is guilty or innocent. Guilty means that you did the crime, okay? You did it. So we've all been guilty probably of getting in trouble by our parents before, and maybe they found out, and guilty means that yes, you did do it. So if somebody commits a crime, okay, so let's say that somebody breaks into a bank and robs it, and they steal all of the money, and they go to court, or they go to a trial, and if they are guilty, it means that yes, they did do that, okay? If you're innocent, it means you didn't do something. Number 5 is pointed. A witness pointed to a map to show where the crime took place. I think we all know what pointed means. Like if I was going to do this and point to my September calendar there, okay? That's just when you use your finger to look at something, or to try to have somebody look somewhere in a certain direction. 6 is honest. People in a court are asked to be honest and to tell the truth. That's extremely important, because if you're not honest in a court case and in a trial, then we're not going to know all of the correct information. And it's really important for the judge and the jury to have people be honest so they can make a correct decision on who's guilty and who's innocent in a case. Number 7, murmur. The judge asks for silence when he hears a murmur in the courtroom. A murmur just means that like everyone is whispering. Everyone's whispering. Okay? And when everyone starts to whisper, it starts to get kind of loud, and that's called murmuring. Okay, murmuring is when everyone is just whispering or like they're talking under their breath. Okay? And the judge says silence in the courtroom. Okay? So the judge doesn't like when people are talking during a court case if they're not supposed to be talking. Number 8, stand. When people take the stand in court, they sit down and they answer questions. So that one's kind of confusing because when you take a stand in court, well, you're actually sitting down in a specific chair right by the judge, and you are answering questions. Okay? So it's not actually like you're standing up, you're actually just answering questions from a judge. That is what taking a stand means. So now that we have talked about our vocabulary for the week, we're going to go ahead and just read our story. So we're going to preview the topic on page 49. If you're not following along with me, I really, really, truly need you to do that because it's pretty important that you are reading along with me and I'm not just reading it to you. So, preview the topic says the court system. Courts play an important part in our cities and towns. Courtroom trials can have a lot of drama. Imagine that a defendant has been accused of breaking a law. The judge sits at the head of the court. Witnesses tell what they know about the crime. The jury, as many as 12 people, so the jury can be made up as 12 people, that's a lot of people, listens to all of the evidence. Then the jury draws a conclusion. Is the defendant guilty or not guilty? In the trial of Cardigan Jones, you'll read about a trial involving a missing pie, a clumsy moose, and a wise judge. Read to find out whether Cardigan Jones is guilty or not guilty. All right, this is a good story too. The Trial of Cardigan Jones, written and illustrated by Tim Egan. And our question at the bottom of page 51 is, why are courts an important part of our government? So that's something that I want you to be thinking about as I'm reading this story. All right, we're going to start the story on page 52. Cardigan walked by Mrs. Brown's house just as she was putting a fresh-baked apple pie in her window. Cardigan loved pies. He walked over and smelled the pie. A neighbor next door saw him, and a milkman, driving by, saw him too. Cardigan was new in town, and they just weren't sure what he was up to. So he's at this window smelling this fresh-baked apple pie, and these people see him. Well, what do you think the people think he might do? Like, what do you think that the milkman and the neighbor next door thought that Cardigan maybe was doing? What? A moment later, Mrs. Brown came back to the window and the pie was gone. She was so upset she called the police. She told them that she'd seen a moose just a few minutes before, so they drove around the block and stopped Cardigan. Wow, well, why did Mrs. Brown call the police and mention that she saw a moose? Noticing that he had a pie crust on his shirt, they arrested him, even though he insisted he hadn't stolen the pie. The judge and a jury were chosen to decide if he stole the pie or not. The neighbor and the milkman were called as witnesses. A witness is somebody who sees something happen or who is by the crime scene at the time. So Mrs. Brown's window would have been the crime scene. And so now they're going to a trial. with a judge, a jury, and the witnesses to see if Cardigan is guilty or not guilty. What do you think? Do you think he stole the pie, or do you think he's innocent? Cardigan's trial started the next day. Mrs. Brown took the stand first. Remember, a stand is when you sit down and you answer questions. Is there anyone in this courtroom that you saw the day the pie disappeared? The judge asked her. Yes, she said. That moose over there. She pointed to Cardigan. There was a murmur from the crowd. He did it. He's guilty, someone said. Well, we don't know that yet, said the judge. The rabbit then took the stand. Did you see anyone near the pie? The judge asked the rabbit. Sure did, said the rabbit. That moose right there. He stole it. No, I didn't, shouted Cardigan. I didn't steal it, I promise. Order, shouted the judge. Cardigan turned his antlers and bumped a statue and sent it crashing to the floor. Aw, poor Cardigan. He's having a really bad day, isn't he? So when the judge says order like that, and he kind of slams down that thing that you see on the table, or on his his desk thing there, when he does that, it means he wants it to be quiet in the courtroom. And poor Cardigan keeps bumping over things with his antlers, and he bumped down a statue and it fell to the floor. It made a really loud noise, and then the jury gave Cardigan dirty looks. If you give someone a dirty look, it means you look at them like, ugh, like disgusted, like you do not like them. Next witness, shouted the judge. The milkman then took the stand. Who did you see at the time the pie was taken? The judge asked. The moose, he said. No question about it. He walked right up to the window. His face was practically touching the pie. By now, some folks were convinced that Cardigan took the pie, even though the judge kept saying, we still don't have any proof, right? They don't have any proof. They didn't actually see Cardigan steal the pie. They just think that because Cardigan was in Mrs. Brown's window and he was there at the time the pie got stolen, that he is the one who took the pie and stole it. But they didn't actually see him take it. They just saw him at the window smelling the pie. So they still don't have any proof, which is why it's really, really important for us to have court cases and trials here in the United States, because sometimes people can be convicted of a crime when they didn't actually do it. But we don't know if Cardigan did this crime yet. So let's keep reading. Finally, Cardigan was called to the stand. As he crossed the courtroom, his antlers got all wrapped up in a flag. It took him over a minute to get unraveled. Poor Cardigan. He's a troublemaker, declared a gopher. Others nodded in agreement, and the judge said, well, Moose, did you walk up to the pie? Well, yes, but just to smell it, said Cardigan softly. I knew it, shouted a goat. Lock him up. Order, commanded the judge. Order in the court. But I didn't take it, insisted Cardigan. Honest. Honest means that he said he's telling the truth. He's being honest. He stood up. His antlers knocked the judge's gavel to the floor. So the gavel is the thing that he keeps slamming down to say order in the court. Sit down, shouted the judge. But as Cardigan went to sit, he bumped the judge with his antlers. The judge fell to the ground. He hit the judge, shouted one of the security guards. They grabbed Cardigan and started taking him away. The jury members had to make up their minds. So after the jury hears from all of the people in the case, they have to decide, well, is that person, which is called the defendant, is he guilty or is he not guilty? So they have to decide now. The judge stood up and said, now, just hold on for a minute. I'm curious about something, he said. Follow me. He walked out of the courtroom, and everyone followed him through the town. They reached Mrs. Brown's house, and the judge walked around the outside to the window where the pie had been. Sure enough, smushed all over the bushes was the apple pie. It didn't smell very good anymore. You knocked it off the window with those giant antlers of yours, you silly moose, said the judge, laughing. It was just an accident. Everyone immediately felt terrible for being so rotten to Cardigan, and the jury proclaimed him not guilty right then and there. Oh my goodness, so he was at the window, and how he keeps knocking all this stuff over with his antlers? He knocked over the pie with his antlers, and he didn't even know it. So he must have walked away and then knocked it off, and then nobody knew that until the judge started drawing all of these conclusions and fitting all of these little puzzle pieces together, and he was like, wait, he keeps knocking over the flag, a statue, the judge. What if he knocked over the pie? And that's what happened. He didn't actually steal it. To make it up to him, they had a party in his honor, and Mrs. Brown baked a pie especially for him. Even after he broke her favorite vase, how do you think he broke the vase? I think it's with his antlers. And that was all. That is the end of this story. All right. So this story is kind of a silly story, and it's one of my favorites in Journeys in 3rd grade. But it just shows us how important a trial and a court system is in our country. Just like I said before, we cannot say that somebody is guilty unless we have evidence and unless we have proof. And they had no proof that Cardigan stole the pie. So I'm really happy that they listened to him, and the judge was smart enough to try to fit all of those pieces together and think, well, maybe he knocked it over with his antlers, which actually happened. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and we will be doing a lot of activities with this story during our short week together.